Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Om Hari Om. Namaste, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here with us once again on this Sunday for our live stream satsanga. This online religious service is brought to you by the International Sanatana Dharma Society, which is a 501c3 nonprofit religious movement. Again, we thank you for being here. I wish to thank the moderators, actually, for all of their help as well. As I said during a talk that I gave on Saturday for our Discord service, for our Discord server, one thing that I sometimes forget to do is to thank the moderators. They're so good at what they do that it seems like they're invisible, but they are there nonetheless. So thank you to the moderators. Thank all of you for being here. Before I begin, let me just say several things. First of all, please subscribe to this channel if you have not yet done so. Please like this video as well if you can. Also visit our website, dharmacentral.com. And when you go there, you'll see that this is the official website of the International Sanatana Dharma Society. And you'll find many of our books. You'll find a beautiful CD that's available of mantra meditations. You'll also find a way to join our email list, which I encourage you and urge you to do. You'll also find information about donating to the International Sanatana Dharma Society, as well as becoming a member of the ISDS. So with that, let me just make one more announcement, actually. I just remembered an important one, and that is, as I mentioned, I actually gave a talk for our Discord server on Saturday, and it was about practicing gratitude in spiritual life. And the video of this talk will be available on Thursday here on YouTube and all of our platforms everywhere. So please look out for that. Again, that should be available Thursday. So now, with that, I want to dive into our talk for today. And as I do this talk, again, just to remind people, if you can please refrain from asking questions until after the talk is over, I would appreciate that greatly. The talk itself will not be very long, and I do want to leave ample room for questions and answers. So with that, let us dive into the talk today. I'm going to be looking at two very specific verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And these two verses very specifically are going to be looking at the transcendental nature of God, how God is indeed a being who transcends materiality in every way whatsoever. So the first verse that we're going to look at, and I should mention these are both from Srimad Bhagavatam. The first verse that we're going to look at is indeed from Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is Canto 11, Chapter 3, verse 34. And the verse proceeds in this way. King Nimi inquired, "Please explain to me the transcendental situation of the Supreme Lord Nārāyaṇa, who is himself the absolute truth and the paramātmanaḥ or Supersoul of everyone. You can explain this to me because you are all most expert in transcendental knowledge." And there ends the quote. So a very nice verse where indeed we have a king, a Maharaja. We have a Raja whose name is Nimi, and he is inquiring from several sages. And very, very specifically, these are the Nava-yogendras. These are the 9 masters of yoga. And these 9 individuals, in turn, are sons of Rishabha, who himself was a Chakravartin. He himself was an individual who was a sage, but also a king. So these are 9 of his sons, and very specifically, it will be one of these sons who's going to respond. But before we go into the next verse where we see the response, I do want to focus on this verse a little bit, actually, because it's a very nice verse, and it's one of these verses in which we see what is the proper way of addressing sages. That is, in a very respectful way, in a way of sincere philosophical inquiry, where you are asking questions truly to know the truth. And this is what this king, what this Raja is doing here. He's asking these questions truly to know truth. So let's look at this verse just a little bit. First of all, he's not asking about just anything. You see, you've heard me say this many, many times in the past, how it is not enough merely to say that, oh, I am a spiritual seeker. What is it very specifically that you are seeking? What is it very specifically that you are looking for? Because when it comes to spirituality, this is so broad a topic. This is so broad a subject matter that when people say, oh, I am a spiritual seeker, today especially, in their mind, they could mean anything. In their mind, they could mean that, oh, they're just seeking mystic powers. In their mind, they could just mean that, oh, they're curious and they just want to satisfy that curiosity. In their mind, they might mean that, well, everyone else seems to be doing it. They all seem to be on some sort of spiritual pursuit. Oh, I should do this too. Make Oprah happy with me. Be on a general pop sort of spiritual pursuit. They could mean something as, let's say, lowly as these answers, or they could actually be more serious. They could truly be seeking philosophical truth. They could truly be seeking true self-realization, self-knowledge in the deepest sense of that term. That is, attempting to go beyond ego and to know who and what they truly are. But then, the highest of all, they may actually be seeking God. And of course, of all the spiritual seekers who are out there, it tends to indeed be a minority of them who actually are searching for the highest. Now, why am I saying all this? Because you've heard me say this before, that we are to seek the highest. Well, in this particular case, with this particular verse, what we have is an example of an individual, this Raja, this king, who is indeed seeking the highest. So thus he makes it very clear what it is that he's seeking. What he says here is, and now let's go through this a little bit. He asks these sages, he says, please explain to me the transcendental situation of the Supreme Lord. Now, we're going to pause there with just this one little clause. He asks, first of all, about the highest. Indeed, not about some demigod or demigoddess, not just about, me. No, he's asking to know about the highest. He's asking to know about God. But more than this, he's asking something very specifically, and thus the title of our talk today. He is asking to understand what is the transcendental situation. In other words, what is the transcendent status? What does it mean for God to be transcendental? This is what he's asking very specifically. So you see how it's a very specific question that he's asking here. But now we go on. Please explain to me the transcendental situation of the Supreme Lord. And now he makes it very clear who he's speaking of. Nārāyaṇa. And this is in the Sanskrit. That's why I have the Sanskrit in the description of this video as well. You'll see both of these verses in the description of the video, and the Sanskrit is there. He's not asking about just anyone. He's asking about Nārāyaṇa. So thus making this extremely personal. He wants to know the highest, that is God, and he wishes to know God in the highest. So thus he wants to know God not just in a vague way, but very specifically, in very intimate terms, in very personal terms. He wants to know what is the nature of Nārāyaṇa vis-a-vis anything that is not Nārāyaṇa. So Nārāyaṇa, God in his most transcendental position. So again, making it extremely specific. So truly, this king is very wise. He is seeking the highest of the highest of the highest. And now he explains who Narayana is. So thus, if anyone has any confusion about Narayana, that he is simply a Hindu god or something like this, in accordance with Wikipedia or some scholars, etc. No, he explains who this Narayana is. He says, Narayana, who is himself the absolute truth. This is as clear a statement as there can be. This is as clear a statement as there can be. Again, you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia will tell you, oh, Narayana Vishnu is one of the many Hindu gods. Well, the Vedic scriptures don't say that. The Vedic scriptures say right here, Narayana, who is himself the absolute truth. In other words, when in common parlance we hear the term God or the absolute or any of these terms, what is being referred to is indeed that which is the absolute truth, not the second highest, third, 10th, 100th highest, but the absolute, that than which nothing is higher, than which nothing is greater. And again, it is being declared here that it is that Narayana who is himself the absolute truth. So Narayana is God. But then this verse goes on, and the paramātmanaḥ, the Supersoul of everyone. So thus, this Narayana is also present within the hearts of all beings. Again, not everyone is. Again, New Age people aside who believe that they're God, well, they're not present in my heart, they're not present in anyone's heart. Sadly, often they're barely present in their own heart. No one else can say this, that they are present within the heart of every single being in existence. But Narayana is indeed that being who is present. So thus Narayana, who is himself the absolute truth, and the paramātmanaḥ, the Supersoul of everyone. So present there within the heart of all beings. Present within the heart of all beings, there are two individual personalities. There is you, there is the Atman, but also with you, there is paramātmanaḥ. So there is you, the self, but then there's also that supreme self, that's Supersoul. Prabhupada sometimes translates paramātmanaḥ as Supersoul, which is also a fine translation. But God is indeed present there within the hearts of all living beings. And again, according to the Vedic scriptures, this is Vishnu, this is Narayana. So now let's go on with this verse. You can explain this to me. So again, the Navayogendras, these 9 sages he's addressing. And he says specifically to them, you can explain this to me. And why? Because you are all most expert in transcendental knowledge. So in other words, these are individuals who they are authorities. And they are authorities not just because they read a lot of books, not just because they have 1 or 5 or 10 PhDs. These are individuals who are authorities precisely because they are sages, precisely because they are individuals who themselves have done the practice. They have done the practice. Yes, they've done the study. Yes, they've done everything that is necessary in order to know what is indeed that transcendental truth, what is the Supreme Being. So thus they are qualified. And thus they are all most expert in transcendental knowledge. Very nice. So that is the first verse we're going to look at. And with that, now let's look at the second verse. And this is also from Srimad Bhagavatam. And very specifically, this is Canto 11, verse 3. Chapter 3, verse 35. Sri Pipalayana said, Nārāyaṇa is the cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. Yet he has no prior cause. He pervades the various states of wakefulness, dreaming, and unconscious deep sleep, and also exists beyond them. By entering the body of every living being as the Supersoul, he enlivens the body, senses, life airs, and mental activities. And thus all the subtle and gross organs of the body begin their functions. My dear king, know that Nārāyaṇa to be the Supreme. So again, a very, very beautiful, very important verse that communicates quite a bit, actually. There's a lot that is here. So first of all, this pipalayana. This is one of these Navayogendras. This is one of these 9 great sages, these great masters of yoga. And he's speaking on behalf of his brothers. They're all brothers, all 9 of these individuals. And again, they are the sons of Rishabhadeva. So he is addressing the king, and he is speaking, again, more about Nārāyaṇa. And he says, Nārāyaṇa is the cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. Let us stop there. First of all, these are the 3 functions as far as what occurs in the universe. That is, the creation of the universe, the maintaining of the universe, but then the ultimate destruction of the universe. And as people know, this happens with all the universes. In Vedic spirituality, we believe in a multiplicity of universes. There are many, many different universes. And each universe comes into being, it's maintained for some time, it goes out of being, but then more universes come, and they all go through this same cycle, etc. So with this being the case, what this great sage is explaining is that it is indeed Nārāyaṇa who is the cause of all 3 of these activities. Now, how is he the cause of all 3 of these activities? First and foremost, because he's God. That being the case, even though, interestingly, he directly does not engage in these activities, he is responsible for those beings who do engage in these activities. So, for example, with creation, it is actually Brahma. It is Brahma who is the being who actually creates the universe, but he receives his power from Nārāyaṇa. When it comes to maintenance, it is a plenary expansion of Nārāyaṇa in the form of a Vishnu present within every single universe who maintains every single universe. But then, again, behind that specified Vishnu in every universe, there is ultimately the supreme Nārāyaṇa or Śrīman Nārāyaṇa. So thus, he is responsible also for maintenance. And then finally, when it comes to the dissolution or the destruction of each universe, that, of course, is Nataraja, that is Shiva, who actually is responsible for the destruction of the universe. But Shiva himself derives his power and his authority from Nārāyaṇa and Nārāyaṇa alone. So this being the case, this is how in this verse, this great sage can say that Nārāyaṇa is the cause for all 3 of these universal activities, creation, maintenance, and destruction. And then with the very last clause of this sentence, he says something very, very important. He says, yet he, that is Nārāyaṇa, has no prior cause. Now, this is important. This also points to the fact that, indeed, he is both a transcendent being, that is, he is that cause which is behind every other cause that exists in this universe, even though he himself is not touched by the universe. And more, there is nothing, again, that is higher than him. So, yet he has no prior cause. There is only one being in creation that can claim that they do not have a prior cause, and that is Nārāyaṇa, that is God. Because it is the nature of the material world that there is causality that is here. There is cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. Everything that exists is an effect that originated from a cause. And again, it's an endless chain, and many chains, actually, some of which crisscross each other, etc. So that one being who can be said to not have a cause, that is God. So again, this is pointing to the transcendental nature of specifically Nārāyaṇa. But now let's go on to the rest of this verse. He pervades the various states of wakefulness, dreaming, and unconscious sleep. We'll stop there with just those 3 for now. There are really 4, I'm not going to the 4th one yet, but there are 4 different, let's say, states of awareness that exist yogically. These are explained in the Upanishads, they're explained in several places, and these are known. So of the 3 of these 3 first ones that are mentioned all occur to the being within the material world, to the embodied being within the material world. So thus, sometimes we have a state of wakefulness. So for example, right now, we are awake, meaning that literally we're just not sleeping. We are conscious, we are awake. This is something that we experience for most of the day, I would hope. Most of us. Some people sleep a lot, but for the vast majority of us, the majority of the day consists of our being awake. But then there's the dreaming state. Well, obviously this occurs when we are sleeping. And very specifically when we are sleeping, but the mind is still very much active in the form of dreams that are occurring. So an individual may be watching us as we're sleeping, and it looks like nothing is going on. But then internally, our mind is quite active, our psyche is quite active, and we're undergoing a variety of different sorts of dreams. Now, the next is unconscious deep sleep. Now, with unconscious deep sleep, this is indeed the third stage. And in this stage, the individual is sleeping, but they are not dreaming. They are in a state of absolute peace and equipoise, where the physical body is there, it's absolutely relaxed. The mind is there, unperceptible to anyone else, but the mind is there, but it is at rest. There's no dreaming going on, there's no thinking that's going on. So this is deep sleep in which the person is unconscious, non-dreaming deep sleep. Now again, all three of these different states exist with the individual who is embodied. So thus, there even having to be the differentiation between being awake versus being asleep. This is only the case with individuals who have bodies, who are embodied. But then,